Good morning, and a warm virtual welcome to those of you who are joining us this morning at the Unitarian Congregation of Mendon and Uxbridge. We've had a long discussion this morning about Joe Biden's recent town hall meeting, and we discussed the fact that it was impossible to believe that professionals could have such a terrible disaster at this first town hall, that no amateur would ever do such a thing. Well, we were wrong, but welcome. This is our first attempt at broadcasting a live message each Sunday. We hope that you will enjoy it, and that while you can't contact us while we are live, do leave messages, suggestions, and we will look at them during this week. We will not have music today. We hope that by next week we will have an additional music microphone, and Matt will be here joining us. We have lost video again. Again, welcome. We will not have an offering here in the church today, but the church's expenses do go on, and we hope that those of you who can will make contributions. In a week or so, we will be able to accept credit cards. For now, we would welcome your checks and other contributions. Perhaps the most important part of our service today will not take place, and that is coffee hour with the wonderful food. We were going to take a picture of the table with all of the food on it, but that seemed like torture. Welcome now as we begin our service with our lighting of the chalice, which we do each Sunday. As we kindle a flame in this chalice, the flame, long the symbol of the presence of the holy, the flame, the symbol of wisdom and knowledge, we kindle in our midst, and we light this flame in a chalice, a shared cup. For each week we gather, usually in person, but this week virtually. We kindle the flame, a symbol of our presence, and the chalice of our community. For we gather together that our works may be multiplied, that our time together may be meaningful. I invite those of you who know the words to join in the words of our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. At the time of the beginning of our service, we usually pause to share joys and sorrows and milestones. We invite those of you who are listening by phone to share your joys and sorrows, and those who are in the chat to share them, and we will light candles. The first candle that I will light is a candle for all of us whose lives are so greatly changed by an illness. Our time is occupied in being alone. May we find ways to help remain a community. Please use your telephones. Please call each other. Please know that if you need something, you may call us and we will attempt to help you, and we will always be here to listen. I will light another candle for those members of our community who are unable to listen and to be with us even that way. Please keep in touch. This morning's service will be slightly changed, the order, because this is our first attempt, and also because um, what should I do? Just what? Oh, I'll light a candle from Abby Williams. A candle of thanks for the ability to join in a worship service remotely. And one from the Bouchards would like a candle of joy for what we have, what we have each other. We'll get through this together. You may continue to send in joys and sorrows, and we will light candles for you during the service. The story I'm going to tell you this morning is actually a reading from the Hebrew Scriptures, the book of Genesis, beginning in the 3rd chapter. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God actually say, 'You shall not eat of any tree in the garden'?" And the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of all of the trees in the garden, but God said, 'You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden. Neither shall you touch it, lest you die.' But the serpent said to the woman, 'You will surely not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.' So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself." God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit of the tree, and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate. The Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. They shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise their feet. To God, the woman, he said, I will multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain shall you bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I command you, you shall not eat it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth to you, and you shall eat plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Pilviera says we would like to light a candle of love and appreciation for our church community to be well and to be safe. As most of you will remember, last Tuesday was St. Patrick's Day. It hardly seemed like Thanksgiving, like St. Patrick's Day with no parade. Still, St. Patrick's Day it was. And I thought we might reflect on that this Sunday. St. Patrick was a real person, though the stories about him have been edited liberally over the years. Most of us think that St. Patrick was Irish. He is, after all, the patron saint of Ireland. But he was, in fact, English. He was born in a rather well-to-do English family, his father being a Christian deacon of the Roman Catholic Church. When he was 16, he was captured by a group of Irish pirates who took him back to Ireland, where for 6 years he served as a slave, primarily as a shepherd. Every day he prayed to God for his forgiveness, for certainly his captivity and servitude was the result of punishment for some terrible disobedience. One day he heard a voice, presumably from God, telling him where he could find a ship that would carry him home. The bad news was that the ship was 200 miles away. However, he managed to get there and be carried back to his family. He and the crew were nearly starved when they arrived, and so God provided a number of pigs for them to eat, and for 2 days they feasted on those. After his return, he studied theology and held a minor office in the church. But he was not ready, he thought, to do anything more than that. But he dreamed that his friend Victorius, who may have the one who gave him the tip about the information to the ship to bring him home, delivered him a letter that was addressed "The Voice of the Irish," and as he read it, he seemed to hear a certain company of Irishmen beseeching him to walk once more among them. He re-embarked for Ireland and began his ministry there. He's credited with introducing the Christian faith in Ireland. That being said, there were so many Christians in Ireland when he got there that the Pope had sent Palladius as bishop some years before. And many of the things credited to St. Patrick were actually being done by Palladius. A number of miracles were attributed to St. Patrick. During his time in Ireland, he claimed that he restored life to more than 33 persons, some of whom who had been dead for years. The things we are most familiar with are his use of the shamrock to convince an unbeliever of the meaning of the Trinity, explaining that the three leaves represented the three persons of God, and the one stem, the fact that all three were actually one. The other, of course, was that he drove all the snakes of Ireland into the sea because they were interfering with his work. Well, a nice story. This is obviously untrue since all the snakes in Ireland were killed during the previous ice age and were never reintroduced. It's a good story, though. Why would anyone want to drive all the snakes away? Many people are afraid of snakes, but the good that they do far outweighs their irrational fears. Aphidophobia is defined as the abnormal fear of snakes. Nothing elicits fear like the sight of a snake, whether it's an image of a snake or an actual sighting of a wild species member. Snakes cause many people to overreact and to panic. From biblical times of the evil serpent to the present, snakes have been portrayed as evil, mean, bloodthirsty creatures. Fact is, snakes are way more beneficial to us than the harm that they do. Now, I'm not trying to make you love them, but rather at least have a basic understanding of their value. What is the best way to cure aphidophilia? The answer is simple: knowledge. Snakes, being unique and unlike most animals, actually makes a great success story. They've been on the earth for more than 100 million years, yet have thrived with no arms, no legs, only one functioning lung, no hearing, and bad eyesight. With all that they are lacking, they've managed to exploit every type of environment on Earth, with the exception of the polar regions. Well, human activity and encroachment on natural habitats has caused their numbers to decline. A few snakes, at least, have benefited from our presence and are thriving. One example is the corn snake. The garbage and mess we produce always entices rodents. Mice and rats, being a favorite food source for the corn snake, are drawn to our messy lifestyles. Corn snakes are attracted to this overabundance of rodents and adapted a lifestyle that is conducive to urban life. A rise in the cost of some consumer products can be attributed to a decrease in snake population. In Florida, sugarcane production has an increasing problem with crop destruction due to a rise in rabbit populations. While the rabbit problem gets larger, the numbers of eastern diamondback rattlesnakes is in major decline. Rabbits are prey for the once common rattlesnake, and in the absence of predation, it allows an overabundant population of rabbits to occur, resulting in crop destruction. There's a story about a region that was dealing with many venomous snake bites, resulting in an alarming number of deaths. Their solution was obvious: to kill off the snakes. This idea ended in major failure and many more deaths than they had had from snake bites. Not only were the venomous snakes killed off, all snakes met their demise. After some time, the area was actually snake free. And due to the absence of snakes, the problem was an overpopulation of rodents and the diseases that they spread. The numbers of death went up dramatically for years. Only when the snake population rebounded did the death rate begin to subside. Many people are oblivious to the many images that we see all the time that include symbolism of snakes. We drive by medical facilities or hear the occasional loud ambulances as they rush by us. It's easy to miss the images of snake symbolisms associated with medicine and medical treatment. That image is the rod of Asclepius. This symbol is a rod with a snake wrapped around it. The rod of Asclepius is from Greek mythology and is associated with medicine and healing. There are sports teams and other organizations bearing snake names. Many religions view snakes as deities. In Southeast Asia, cobras are revered by Hindus. They believe they are a manifestation of Shiva, which is a god associated with destruction and regeneration. There is an annual lunar holiday in which Hindus refrain from going into the fields to tend crops out of respect for cobras. Many images of the Buddha include a giant cobra over him. This belief is that the cobra would spread its hood over the Buddha to protect him from the sun while he was meditating. Many Buddhists and Hindu temples have images of cobras near their entrances. Perhaps we should look a little deeper into the cause of human fear of snakes and what the basis of it is. The story that I told you earlier might give you a hint. The Bible and Judeo-Christian religions have generally taken a very dim view of snakes. But are they really bad? As I listen to that story, it seems to me that the snake is the hero. We owe far more of our creation to that little bit of wisdom that the snake gave than to all of God's words. The serpent, the most subtle of creatures, asks that question. Look at all these fruits, and you're not permitted to eat any of them? What the woman was looking for is clear in her response. Oh, no, we can eat any of this fruit except from that tree, the one in the middle of the cluster there. Gosh, we can't even touch that one or we'll die. Now, I don't know about you, but I never heard anything about touching before. Jewish scholars point out that this embroidery on the truth is an indication that sin may already have been loose in the garden. But it seems sure that she hoped the servant would at least catch her on that and perhaps suggest that she could even eat the fruit. Her reason and knowledge told her it was wrong, but just just maybe. Well, she wasn't disappointed. And she sure didn't put up much of an argument when the serpent said it wouldn't kill her. She ate and gave some to the man, and he didn't put up any argument either. Then they were confronted for their actions. The man's response was perhaps predictable. Gosh, God, it was that woman that you gave me. I figured that I could trust her. She misled me, and I ate. The woman, too. That smooth-talking serpent. How could I know any better? The serpent beguiled me, and I ate. The ball is now in God's court. These humans had created, he had created, given them abilities and freedoms, and they had been given prohibitions, and now they had broken the prohibitions. But after all, they had trusted. They had listened to what must be considered reasonable authority. What had they missed? What had gone so wrong? God wasted no time dealing with the serpent. And for someone who told the truth and perhaps gave us the best of our freedoms, the serpent seems to have gotten a rough deal, especially in the bruising your head part. But God sure waxes eloquent in dealing with the serpent. It's a full-blown curse. When God deals with the woman, we are sure enough of the punishment, but not really sure of exactly what it's for. For being misled? For eating the pomegranate? It was an apple. Or for misleading the man? Then God is ready to deal with Adam. God seems to have been only practicing with the serpent and the woman, and really gets wound up with Adam. It's a curse to end all curses. Now, Adam and all of our earlier cast of characters, when they talked about what they had done, placed the emphasis on the woman or the serpent or whatever it was that beguiled them. What they had done, and I ate, seems more of an afterthought, of little importance. It was the excuse, the authority for what they had done that they wanted considered. Well, it seems like Adam got his wish, for that's exactly what God did. Now today, when we look at a criminal in court or otherwise, at someone who did something wrong, broke a law, we tend to look at what it was that they had done, the act, the crime, whatever. If someone is to be punished, it is for the act. We may look at mitigating circumstances, but first we look at the act. I know it's been a long time, but Ollie North comes to mind as a really great, more modern example. If you are to deal out punishment to Ollie North, it will be because he sold arms to Iran or raised or gave money to the Contras. The fact that he was, quote, obeying his superiors, or that he knew that what he did was wrong, may or may not mitigate in his favor. Isn't that how God should handle it? Well, you did eat that forbidden fruit, so you are guilty. But of course, we have to take into account that you were misled, that you relied on what seemed reliable authority. But God didn't handle it that way. God takes the clue from Adam, and the force of the statement seems unmistakable. Because you have listened to the voice of your wife, you hardly hear the rest, and have eaten of the tree, and it seems to trail off. The part which was supposed to be the excuse has now become the crime. It seems clear that God had given humanity the ability to reason and to know, else the disobedience would have been meaningless. God had given humanity the ability to act on its own authority, to think and to reason. The crime then seems to be less the disobedience of God's rule, but disobedience to human nature and human ability. It seems not so bad that Adam and the woman ate the fruit, but that they failed to use the reason and abilities that God had given them. And to paraphrase William Ellery Channing, I am sure that the human rational nature is from God, than that any book or law or authority is an expression of God's will. How often in our treatment of ourselves or others do we excuse failure to thoroughly examine a situation, but rather to accept tradition or authority as the guide for our action? How often do we cheer the patriotism of the Ollie Norths who follow orders? How often do we allow interpretation of the Bible to be an excuse for each of us, allow what we want against what we know is right, and say, the devil made me do it? Now, as we from Erica Jennings, for everyone's health and safety,